Right, so, this is the order of service that Julie asked for.
Why am I on the front of this?
That's what Julie asked for.
She picked the photo herself. It looks like I've died as well.
I could use a different one if you want.
No, it wouldn't look right. And, well, it is a lovely picture of us both.
Julie, madly, deeply, how apt.
She loved that film.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
Hello and welcome to episode 359 of The Talk of the Street, an unofficial Coronation Street catch-up podcast that's still waiting on Liam to come back from the suppliers with a long stand, a bag of steam and a tin of tartan paint, but he did come back with this glass of bull's milk. Delicious. I'm Gavin.
And I didn't get shot today.
Well done. I didn't get shot either. You were closer to getting shot than I was, though.
Yes, there was a shooting across the street from my place of employ. At the mall, in front of Dick's.
You maybe want to explain that for our non-North American listeners.
At the mall, in front of Dick's Sporting Goods.
I don't know how that's still a thing.
What, Dick's Sporting Goods?
You would think they would change their name.
You know, like Dick's?
To like Cox Sporting Goods or something. Wiener's Sporting Goods.
Yeah. Welcome to America.
For the dicks?
For the Dicks.
And the shootings.
And the shootings, yes.
What's the closest you think you've ever been to death?
Not that.
No.
No, it was when I fell into our pool.
Our pool?
Into the pool that my family had when I was a child. When I was like 10. And the cover was on because it was like...
Oh, even worse.
It wasn't January, but it was like March. And the cover was still on. And my dad and Mr. Kingsbury were working on our
Fuck you, Mr.
deck.
Kingsbury.
And Mr. Kingsbury saved my life.
Oh, he did.
He saw me fall in and then immediately just reached his big, mighty arm down into the pool and just yanked me back up.
Well done, Mr. Kingsbury.
Well done.
I owe you one.
God bless you, Mr. Kingsbury. Rest in peace.
Oh.
So you'll have to owe him one in heaven someday.
I will just write it off. It's fine.
How about you? What is the closest you've been to death?
I was just thinking Lethal Weapon for years. Because somebody does die that way in Lethal Weapon.
In a pool?
Falling onto a covering on a pool and they just get tangled up in it.
Oh.
I was walking through some scrub, I would say, at the caravan park outside Lanark, and I sank into a bog, a hidden bog, and was sinking very rapidly up to about my shoulders.
What?
As I managed to somehow grab onto the grass at the top of the hole that I'd fallen into, essentially, and pull myself out. But I was convinced I was going to drown.
Right, you'd be the only Gen Xer to ever die of quicksand.
Yeah. In Scotland.
In Scotland. How many times were we warned about the quicksand?
The one time I go adventurously walking through something, and that's what happens. Maybe that's why I don't really care for it.
No, that's why you don't like
It
hiking
reminds
in
me
the
of
woods.
death.
It reminds you of death, yes.
I dare say I've come close, and maybe even closer to it, and not realised.
Yeah. If your convention in Las Vegas was 1 week earlier, for example.
Sure.
Because you were in that same hotel.
Right.
Yeah.
Good comment. Why are we talking about this?
Because I was
Oh,
in
because you're
lockdown
nearly
because
shot,
there
that's
was
right.
there was a shooting at the mall across the street from where I work. And there were hundreds and hundreds of cop cars just clogging the mall parking lot.
And yet the mall did not close.
Well, see, I've heard
Welcome to America.
I've heard that, but then also I saw someone say that they were with their disabled child in the food court, and they were locked down. They were told that they couldn't exit there, that they had to move quickly to the other side of the mall. So,
But not out of the mall.
yeah. Not my first lockdown, but probably closer than the other lockdowns I've been in, because the other lockdowns I've been in schools, when I worked in schools, it was always like more of a threat than somebody actually showing up with a gun. Thank God. So, yeah. Welcome to America. As if you needed any other reason to not come here.
We're doing for American tourism what every movie does for Australian tourism.
Yes.
Shall we preamble, my dear?
Yes, please.
Give us some of that patriotic Corrie news.
Our dear Coulson has landed on his feet. Landing a job. Why did I put land twice? That's very poor writing on my part, and I apologize, folks.
Or just fix it on the fly and start it again.
Or just apologize and keep going, which is what I'm going to do. Landing a job with BBC Radio Leeds, putting all of those podcasting skills on the couch to good use. Or the sofa. Is it sofa still?
On the sofa.
On the sofa. So
what's he doing? Presenting?
on the radio.
That's what he wanted to do, wasn't it?
BBC Leeds. I thought he wanted to like present on like game shows and stuff, but I don't know. Working on the radio sounds fun. I'd like to work on the radio.
Yeah.
I'd like to work for NPR.
Your name's not
NPR News.
Your name's not exciting enough.
For
Everyone
NPR?
Everyone in NPR's got a kind of funny name.
You don't think Broom is a funny name?
I don't think it's funny at all. Good for him.
Good for him. Yes, indeed. He looks happy. He looks happy. And that's all that matters.
Everyone looks happy on the radio.
Yes. Or standing outside the BBC Leeds building, pointing up in a picture, announcing that
You didn't have to describe the picture. We all knew what the picture looked like.
Claire Sweeney has renewed her contract to play Cassie Plummer on the street for another year, which is weird because we have not seen her in ages. I thought she was already off the show. Because when was the last time we saw her? It was shortly after she tried to kill Ken.
She tried to kill Ken, then she became homeless for a week.
God damn it!
And then
They killed Kenny! You bastards! I can't believe I haven't done that before in this storyline.
we're all reasonably thankful that you didn't. She tried to kill Ken. She became homeless. Then Evelyn guilted Tyrone
Into taking her back.
Visiting, taking her back.
Right.
And that's the last we've seen of her. And then Doran came back.
Right, and we saw her with Doran
And
briefly.
then we've seen neither
have-
hide nor hair of either of them.
We haven't seen anybody in that family in ages. Has Doran murdered them?
Well, if he has, there's one thing you can be sure. He'd tell us about it.
And he tried to get Lello into the conversation at
Lello.
some point. Oh, dear.
This one's different.
We love that child.
So much.
We will protect him with our lives. And finally, it appears that Cobble's flock is losing its shepherd, as Daniel Brocklebank will be leaving the show. According to his partner Jordan Coulthard, the decision to part ways was made by the show bosses and not Brocklebank himself. And Daniel's partner Jordan is very, very indignant about this and has been taking to social media to say this was disgusting and a bad decision on their part, and they're going to regret it somehow. Daniel himself has been very gracious about it, but his partner, who's not employed by ITV, has not been.
It's a paper's trying to sell papers. I just said that out loud. I'm not. Try to sell papers based on what Daniel Brocklebank's partner says. I don't think papers are trying to sell copies for that, but it's a headline. It's making a headline. And who knows what they mean by indignant.
Well, he posted it himself on Instagram. It's not a paper.
Oh,
These were verbatim.
I'm trying to give
verbatim
him the
words
benefit of the doubt here.
from this gentleman. What will Den do?
I think Den gave up some time ago on Corrie.
On the whole show?
I think so.
Wow. That's
It
sad.
can be done.
That's sad.
Yeah.
So why are we still
I
watching?
think, well, sure. I think from Billy's point of view,
Billy's or Daniel's?
a.k.a. Daniel Brocklebank, from Billy's point of view as a character, now that Paul's gone, he doesn't have an awful lot to do and very little connection with anybody apart from Summer.
He has a daughter with diabetes. And also, he's
And an eating disorder. Remember she had an eating disorder?
Right, yeah. And also, he's still got Bernie and Gemma and Chesney, who still consider him family.
Or they consider them family at that one time. I don't know. To me, it's the sort of thing that if you're a fan of Billy, you worry about when something happens, like Paul going out of the show. Where does this leave Billy? As it turns out, doesn't really leave him anywhere.
Even though he was on the show for a decade before he even got together with Paul. So obviously the show has had use of him in the past, but...
Yeah, they threw him down a quarry, remember?
And he lived.
Right.
And he lived to get addicted to painkillers.
I don't know. I find this kind of difficult because I don't feel like I can say what I really want to say. So,
Yeah, we're not talking about chemtrails on the show
Not
today.
this week.
Not this week. And that's Corrie News.
that's Coronation News, and that leads us awkwardly as ever into our feedback section that I like to call Everyone's a Critic. Stephen writes, I'm laughing way too hard at the kit as a sandwich and Mick is a precinct jokes. The Mick is a precinct joke. Still makes me chuckle when I think about it. It's great. It's always great to laugh at your own jokes.
Yes.
Reminding me of the time Phil Leotardo turned into a house on The Sopranos. I've never watched The Sopranos, so I don't get that.
Yeah. It's been a while. But yeah, that joke still works.
Also, I love the flashback sound effect. Sorry, Helen. What, this one? Flashback.
I think we've already met our quota for South Park jokes for the week.
Sadly, no flashbacks this week.
Huzzah!
Then Canadian Helen writes, apologies for not writing for a while. Life has been busy. I'm loving the podcast as always. I got on the Chat GPT bandwagon and I've been having some fun with it.
Whoa.
And she made an image for the podcast, and it was an image of us, which I might post on the old socials.
Wait. What? What does this look like?
It was our banner put through the Chat GPT's shenanigans.
Do I look okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not a fan of AI in any capacity.
My hair has never looked so lush. It's quite a likeness, she says, and I have to agree. Thank you very much for that, Canadian Helen. I'm glad to hear from you again.
Yes, absolutely that. Yes.
See, I love Chat GPT.
Yeah.
It's really useful, and it's very useful in my work.
That I can kind of understand, but it uses a lot of electricity and water.
Certainly does. All the fresh water. All the fresh water.
A lot. And, that's a resource that's not as renewable as one would think.
Yeah, it's raining. Then Charles writes, I find myself quite cut up about Craig.
Yeah. Thank you. So was I.
I think a lot of people were. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people were quite surprised by how
Yeah.
affecting that was in those scenes.
Seriously.
Sharon writes, hi Stan and Hilda, hope you're both well. All I've got to say this week is Vicky Myers, aka Swain, is excellent at sneeze acting. Looks like now she's going to have some exotic diseases which will probably require hospitalisation and maybe even a medically induced coma. Who knows?
Is COVID making a comeback?
I don't know.
Maybe.
Love you both, from Sharon. Still not racist. I get worried when I see still not racist because it suggests that...
One of these days.
Right.
One of these days.
Sharon, racist as fuck. Let's hope not. Hold on there, Sharon. We're fighting the good fight here. And Cheeky writes, I'm going to keep my thoughts brief this week. I think they gave Kirk his best performance in a decade, talking about how he was grieving. Tracy was given her best comedic bitchy material in at least a year. The karaoke was gasoline, and that's exactly what I love happening in The Rover's Return. And finally, we know that the new priest character played by Richard Windsor of The Casualty fame is definitely going to be a new villain in the show for a little bit. I'm excited to see what he does with the role, but I'm getting a bit tired of villains just popping up one after another.
Agreed.
There are better stories to be told with an entire community of people.
Yes.
I agree. And I wondered where I'd seen Richard Windsor before, so thank you for that as well. Thank you to Cheeky, to Sharon, to Charles, to Canadian Helen, and to Stephen for the feedback this week. Very much appreciated as always. And feedback's welcome. Send us your thoughts and I'll probably read them out. Get us at thetalkofthestreet@gmail.com, or our DMs are open at Corrie Podcast. Well, we love it when people write actual letters to us. Send us your proper mail to the Talk of the Street, PO Box 12, Eaton Rapids, Michigan 48827, which I forgot to check this week. Please note that we reserve the right to edit feedback, but only in the interest of brevity. And now let's podcast for coffee.
Yes.
We're drinking our own coffees this week. I'm drinking this flat SodaStream ginger ale. I've had the devil's own job trying to get replacement CO2 canisters for that SodaStream machine.
Yes. Still better than
Supply
buying
chain.
cans.
Supply chain. I'm blaming tariffs.
Yes.
Tariffs on carbon dioxide.
We blame everything on tariffs now. It used to be COVID and now it's tariffs. I am drinking cranberry juice because apparently our shopper forgot to get grapefruit juice this week.
And it's so good.
It's so good.
If it's any consolation, they also forgot to get apples. But thankfully we have enough apples left from last week.
But did remember grapes.
You know what? I've not had a grape in a while.
Yeah, grapes
That's
are
what I
good.
thought. Grapes are good.
Grapes are good.
The Talk of the Street is and will always be free on your podcast provider and on the YouTubes. Blah, 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 ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com/the Talk of the Street. Blah, 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 blah. Friend of the podcast, $2 a month. Blah, blah, blah. Patreon.com/the Talk of the Street. But remember, blah, 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 wherever you get your podcasts. All right. Shall we dive in, my dear?
Blah, 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 blah. Skylander.
Nobody gets that.
No, but we do.
Our kids would get it. But they don't listen to this because they are too cool. So, our first storyline this week is for the Memory of Tinks.
Aw.
On Monday, there's a memorial for a murdered police officer at a children's play area. Isn't that nice?
Why is it there?
Because that's where he got killed.
Well, he got killed around the corner in the backyard.
Well, see, I don't think that. I think that is where he got killed then. And I think I was right last week. They've built the memorial where he died. You don't build a memorial for someone round the corner from where they died.
Well, maybe they do because, the other part is a dead end and it's not safe for children.
None of that is safe for children. What's happened there recently?
To lay flowers for a dead policeman.
Chesney and Gemma's wig find Kit there, but he quickly leaves. Asha arrives with flowers, and then Daniel and Bertie show up because he wants to play on the swings or something. Bertie, though, leaves a teddy bear.
Dressed like a police officer.
Brody has been released from the cop shop and looks on with a sneer at the proceedings. In Nina's roles, Kirk has boxes to package up Craig's stuff to send to Beth, and this is where we start to find out how we're going to get out of not having Lisa George in the show. All Tinker stuff is getting sent back to Norfolk.
Norfolk, yes.
Where Beth now stays.
Right. Including Craig's body.
And that is where the funeral's going to be held.
And for
where
family,
Craig knew nobody.
And it's family only. So it's just Beth.
Right.
What other family do they have? It's going to be what, Beth, Kirk, and Maria?
I get the impression that Kirk's not going because of what's about to happen. I don't think Kirk's invited to this.
So it's just Beth because he had no other family.
Well, he did have. Well, he had aunties. Remember Sinead's aunties?
No.
Sinead's aunties came when she was either getting married or had the cancer, or maybe both. And they were hilarious.
I don't remember any aunties.
So these were Beth's sisters, I guess.
Huh. Who then were
And
never
her mum.
mentioned.
And one of them was her mum, wasn't it?
And they were never mentioned
No,
again.
they're never mentioned again. But I don't think they lived in Norfolk. They didn't look like farmers.
Then why is Beth living in Norfolk with the farmers?
She got offered a job, didn't she?
Farming?
And making knickers for cows.
They need them. They need them.
I'm not sure.
Those ladies have no shame.
I get the impression, though, that this is... It's not really the impression. This is how it's been delivered. This is how we're doing it. This is how we're getting out of not having Beth coming back.
Right.
We're making Tinker get buried somewhere
Where he knows no
where
one.
we're not actually sure he's ever been
Right.
as his final resting place.
Yes. And it's family only. That's the part that really bothers me. The whole family only thing. Why wouldn't you want, like, the people that loved him the most? Like his friends and stuff and coworkers. You'd think, I don't know. It's weird and I don't like it.
When Chesney and Gemma's wig come in, Kirk flips out and accuses them of being Mick's mate, and he storms off with all his package and stuff that he'd brought into a cafe. In the pub later, Kirk tells Maria, Daniel, Nina and Asha that Beth wants the funeral to be in Norfolk with her, and she wants it family only, so no one is invited. Chesney comes in and Kirk loses his temper at him again, so Ches apologises for being a horrible wee ginger coward. So Kirk accepts Chesney's apology, and the two of them make up. And once again, the show dials back any attempt to make Kirk interesting and have him eating crisps with Chesney before the episode is done.
And no one mentions the fact that Mick threatened the lives of the quads and also kidnapped Bernie and would have killed her as well. Nobody mentions this. It's like, if you had done something, Craig would still be alive. And it's like, yes, well, because we didn't do something, our children are still alive. And also, my mother was kidnapped and had her life threatened by this guy. Shut up.
Having Kirk have an enemy is sort of interesting, or sort of interesting for Kirk. To have Kirk have some kind of emotion towards somebody else is unusual, because of his crushing depression, he's just in a wee world of his own most of the time, and he reacts to people in the same way that he reacts to anybody else. It doesn't matter who you are, you're just there to listen to Kirk say something stupid. But here he was angry and upset and lashing out.
Right.
And that's more interesting than Kirk is normally allowed to be.
Right.
But they don't let it last. It lasts for 10 minutes.
He'll still be mad at Mick and probably Lou if he ever bumps into them.
See, you never see that. They
No.
never give you that with Kirk and Lou. Maybe
No.
that would be interesting to see.
That would be interesting to see. But no, instead, Lou is bumping into everybody else on the street.
And she's about to hear as well, because Lou comes into the pub to get a drink, but Glenda throws her out. Kirk now doesn't think it's right that people don't get to pay their respects to Tinker, so he's decided to have a memorial and a wake here in Weatherfield,
Yes.
which isn't the same thing.
No.
On Wednesday, I'm kind of cobbling together little bits and pieces of this storyline into one thread, and we'll come back to another one. So, for the moment, on Wednesday, Lou turns up for her shift at the salon, and Maria is hacking furious about this and tells Lou that she's fired. Lou didn't even want to work here anyway, and tells Maria that her farts don't smell so sweet either. Thank you very much, madam. Good day.
Which is exactly what she said the last time Maria fired her.
Yes. Lou goes to the pub for a drink, but her card is declined. She explains about her firing to Gary, who initially celebrates, but Lou says that Mick gave her plenty of kickings too, and she never did anything to Gary personally, so Gary agrees and buys her a drink. The two of them are chatting about Mick when Maria comes in, and she's furious to see this and drags Gary home. He says he felt sorry for her and sorry for her girls. She thinks that she was flirting with him, but she really wasn't.
She wasn't. Yeah, Maria just jumps to this conclusion all the time. Just because she thinks Gary's hot doesn't mean everybody thinks Gary is hot.
Notably, though, I think Gary allows Maria to think this. Yeah, well, babe, I wasn't about to fall for that.
Right.
Yeah, she thinks that she was flirting with him so he would put in a good word with Maria. And Gary says, I don't think that's impossible. She's only human. But doesn't blame her and says that they would do the same in similar circumstances. Won't someone please think of those children? And speaking with David, Maria is surprised to find that he's Team Gary on this as well. Just because her husband is a wrong un doesn't mean that she's complicit, and he reminds her of Gary's past. That would make you a baddie as well, Maria.
Yes.
So when Gary gets home...
It would make everyone on the street a baddie.
Shona, for example.
Right, yes.
So when Gary gets home, Maria has cooked dinner. This is my way of saying sorry, she says. Gary's bought a bottle of wine. That's his way of saying sorry. Lovely stuff.
You know what?
What?
It's better than a ham.
It's better than a ham.
Yes.
Unless you're really in the mood for a ham.
Yeah. Who's ever really in the mood for a ham, though? I mean, ham is nice, and I'll eat it.
I think fondly about ham monthly, I would say.
I don't think I ever think fondly of
A
ham.
nice little bit of ham. Anyway, he apologises for giving Mick a job, but not like that, in the first place. And she's given Lou her job back, so everything's reset.
Again.
On Friday, though, Ed's starting at the builder's yard today, and Maria talks Gary into assigning Liam to be Ed's gopher. Later in Nina's roles, Liam reveals that Ed is sending him to the suppliers for a tin of elbow grease.
Which is hilarious.
Liam is thick as shit in the neck of a bottle, but finally realises that he's been punked again. Yet again.
Yeah, but this is cute. This is very sweet. And Ed's been really, really good with the kid. And he says to Gary, I would have never actually sent him for the elbow grease. And it's Ed.
Liam, no! He would have shouted. Ed sees Gary's disapproval, though, and rushes off. Gary admits to telling Ed about Mick's bullying, and Liam is scunnered by this, thinking that Ed will now think that he can't take a joke, because before, Ed was bant central.
Yeah.
Later, Gary explains how hypersensitive he is about Liam. Ed explains that embarrassing kids is a parent's job, and he thinks Liam really looks up to Gary, which is news to Gary. Liam will be all right, says Ed.
Yes.
And that's as far as we get with all those little bits and pieces this week.
Yes, and I think that is very true. And I think...
Do you think Liam does look up to Gary?
I think so. Gary's cool. Gary's hip. Gary's with it.
Gary is none of those things.
Gary is all of those things in his own mind.
Remember when Gary was dancing to was it a Keep Fit video in the
Yes,
flat?
yep.
Dressed in green?
Yeah.
Yeah, Gary's none of those things.
I thought that was cool. Wasn't that moment of the week for us that week?
Do you know? Were we drinking at that point?
No, but I'm pretty sure it was Slim Pickens otherwise.
It must have been. Although it was funny.
It was funny. Yeah, it was funny. And it was fun to see a character like Gary, cutting loose.
I think that Gary is at least something of a constant in Liam's life.
Right, absolutely.
And does generally have his back.
Yes.
And treats him like one of his several own.
Yes. He spends more time with Liam than any of his biological children.
Right.
And also, I think, for the most part, Gary and Maria are a good couple and demonstrate good relationship skills for Liam and Gary's other children that we only see rarely, sort of thing.
Although the last time we saw one of the other ones, Jake, was it?
Yeah, he was trying to con money out of racist Kelly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for a PlayStation or something.
Xbox, I think it was.
Was it an Xbox?
Mm-hmm. And then we never see the other one, Zach.
Yeah. Is that Izzy's kid? No, that's the one that moved away with his mom when we first started doing the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And never saw either one of them again.
It allowed Phelan to say Zacharias. I remember that much.
And then he died.
Stabbed in the heart.
And you're to blame.
In the kitchen.
Darling, you give love. I like that Ed's working back in the yard. I like that. I like that idea. I like the idea of Gary and Ed hanging out, fixing shit.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, Ed has a full-time gig at the Rape Hotel, which by all accounts has fallen to pieces.
Right.
But it's a bit of a come down for Ed, though, isn't it? Because he used to own that until very recently.
Yeah.
And now he works there. He's somebody.
I think that's
somebody
better.
else is the boss.
I think it's better that he's in a position where his hand cannot get in the till.
Yeah, maybe.
So, and he seems fine with it. He seems comfortable with it. And, you know, if he's hanging out with Gary fixing shit, then he's not shaming his daughter into giving her child up for adoption. So I'm all for
I think
it.
you can do both.
I'm all for it.
What were your thoughts on Maria firing Lou for, was it the second or third time?
Yeah, I mean, Lou didn't kill Craig.
No, but look at what that does to the reputation of the salon, though.
Yeah, there is that. But you know what? Lou was in a number of establishments this week, and nobody really, talked down to her.
She got barred that one time with the Rovers and then went back the next day and everything was fine.
Right, yeah.
Except her card was declined.
Right, yeah. And Bernie was fine with her in Nina's roles when Brody bought the milkshakes. But of course, Bernie's going to be fine with it because she thinks that's her grandson, which, I don't know. The eyebrows don't lie.
They really don't. Do you follow Lou on Instagram?
I don't think so.
She is 100% hilarious.
Oh, well, then I must follow her.
She does little skits.
What is her real name?
Farrell Hegarty. There's a good name.
Farrell?
She could be on NPR any day of the week. Twice on Sunday with a name like Farrell. Yeah. Farrell, Farrel.
How did I get a T in there?
Fartle?
Fartle. Farrell Hegarty right there. Oh, look, she's got a rainbow flag in her thing. That definitely deserves a follow. Skits on here, calling people a cow on Corrie. Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. All right, then we shall move on to our next storyline, which is Ill-Timed Proposal number 1. On Monday, it's the next day after the proposal before, and a sniffling...
Swain.
and Carla are walking on eggshells because...
And not sunshine.
No, because Carla knocked back Swain's proposal because it was dreadful timing.
Yes.
And Swain is an emotional wreck because of the knockback, but also because of the reason why it was a bad idea to propose at that time.
Right, yes, because of Craig's death. It was terrible timing. Who wants to have like one of the happiest moments of their lives occur just after a death?
We'll get to some more of that later on.
We'll get to some more of that very soon.
They meet up in the bistro later because Swain just can't get out of the house quick enough because she's so embarrassed, I think, by the whole thing.
Yes.
So they meet up in the bistro later. Carla wants to know why Swain doesn't want to talk about the proposal and apologises for upsetting her.
Because it's a terrible movie.
Carla asks if she meant it. And she says that she did.
Yeah.
But she let her emotions get the better of her.
Yeah.
Carla says she was thrown and didn't know what to make of it. So Swain officially withdraws the proposal, which Carla thinks is her being childish and pouty. So, childishly and poutily, Swain says that she's had enough of this and goes back and she's about to head back to work. Carla apologises for not thinking and reckons that she'd be a nightmare to be married to, but she does love Swain and she can see them getting married at some point, but she wants it to come from a place of love, not a place of dead tinker.
Yes.
And Swain agrees.
Of grief, yes. And also, it's been just like, 2-3 months? You don't propose to somebody after 2-3 months.
Well, they're getting long in the tooth.
They are not.
I don't know. I think if you know, you know. If you know, you know. You know?
No, I don't.
You know.
It's
But it's still, it was a terrible time to do it.
right, yeah.
And
they are also constantly breaking up with one another.
I don't think they do that as much anymore.
I mean, this would be Carla's, fourth?
This would be our first wife.
That does, no.
But
it wouldn't be her first marriage, though.
But she'd been married to Paul Connor, Tony Gordon, Peter Barlow, and Nick Tilsley.
Wait,
And
what?
she'd been married to Peter Barlow twice.
Yeah, so it makes sense that Carla's like, maybe we wait a while, because this would be marriage number 6. Is Carla my dad?
I will happily take guidance on this from Coronation Street. But to me, I think that the better proposal is a proposal that is kind of, as Carla is suggesting, that is nothing but love.
Right.
Rather than a reaction to something.
Right. And if you...
A reaction to something else and a reaction to something
horrible,
negative.
yes.
Yeah.
And if you can manage to do it in the Logan Airport baggage claim...
Carousel A.
Even better. Because then strangers will clap for you and take video of you that you'll never ever see. I keep expecting one day to stumble across video of our proposal on the internet somewhere.
Well, we are really the main character in other people's story.
It's like every time, our friend Stephen, who got his wife a pug on their wedding day and how that went viral and everything. Mm-hmm. Every time that comes back up, I think there are people who have Gav and I on their phones in a video somewhere.
Not as much as Stephen Watt, though.
No.
So if you've seen that video of the Scottish guy who gives his wife on her wedding day
a pug
at the wedding,
yes,
at the reception,
yes,
a pug dog, that's
yes,
our friend.
That's our friend.
The guy, not the girl, and not the dog.
Yeah. Well, it's like our other friend Stephen, who's also Scottish, whose son writes for...
Is it SZA that it's pronounced?
Yes, it's SZA, yeah. Mm. He writes songs for
the
SZA,
SZA.
And has a Grammy, or at least a Grammy nomination.
And has a Grammy.
Yeah. Yeah.
This SZA, though. Is it this
yes.
SZA?
Our other friend Stephen, who is also Scottish, has a son with a Grammy Award for writing songs for SZA.
I tell you, if you're a friend of mine called Stephen, you really need to up your game.
And yes, we're talking about you, Stephen.
I'm all for them getting married. Although I have to say, getting them married, I don't know if married couples typically or seldom deliver.
Yeah, because remember, we thought Carla and Peter were going to be forever the second time around because we had that whole emotional episode on New Year's Eve in the billiards room, which nobody ever goes in anymore. No. They've burned that pool table.
But yeah, I think we would want it to be something that sweeps us off our feet watching it.
Right, yeah, not something that happens when the street is preparing 2 funerals.
Right.
2.
All right, we'll move on to our next storyline, Mick the Murderous prick. On Monday, Kit goes to visit Mick and gives him the forensic report, which suggests that Mick is fucked and will be held until the plea hearing. Kit promises to make sure that Mick will rot for this. I should say Mick is still in prison at this point.
Yes.
Meanwhile, Lou and the girls are in Nina's rolls when Brody comes in. And once again, the little one is absolutely adorable.
So cute.
Lou has finally given her face a wash and she's got rid of that jam that was down the side of her cheek. Yes,
she still has a bit of a scar.
She does. And
but it's hidden by her hair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Brody seems unperturbed by the fact that Mick is in jail. Bernie looks at Brody longingly. Lou wants Brody to look after the kids, but he has business to take care of, he says, and that business is to break into Kit's flat and wreck it, where he is promptly caught by Kit. Kit notices that somebody's broken into his flat and just kind of pushes the door open quietly and catches him in the act and says, "You busy?" Or whatever it was. It was quite funny.
It was.
Brody is unrepentant and dares Kit to arrest him. Kit tells him to sit down, but Brody reckons that Kit stitched Mick up. Kit tells him that Mick isn't the man that Brody thinks he is, and there's forensic evidence falling out of his arse to prove it. Mick, he says, is a violent man who beats up Lou, and Kit wouldn't be surprised if he beat up Brody too.
Which Brody does not deny.
Does not answer. In fact,
He runs out in tears.
No, he launches himself at the 9-foot-tall copper, and they scrap. Sarah and Bernie are on their way to speak to Kit when Brody bursts out the flat and runs down the alleyway of doom. When Sarah and Bernie get in, they find Kit tidying up, looking like he's been beaten up, but just a wee bit. Later at the pub, Sarah will not fucking shut up about how it's weird that no one stole anything. Like the last 2 times anybody broke into your flat, Sarah, where they didn't steal anything.
Right, yes. They only threatened your daughter and then ran back out again.
Gary comes in and takes some pleasure in announcing that if Kit had done anything when Mick beat him up, Tinker would still be alive. So Gemma's wig has to throw him out of the pub.
Yeah, but you can tell by Kit's face that Kit is kind of thinking the same thing.
Oh, I think he knows it,
Yeah.
Bernie bumps into Brody and accuses him of breaking into Kit's flat. She tells him that she doesn't know if Mick killed Tinker, but she does know that he kidnapped her.
Yeah.
She tells Brody that he reminds her of her Paul and tells her it's not too late to turn his life round. But then Kit comes along and arrests Brody. Oh, thank fuck for that. Later, Bernie's annoyed at Kit for arresting Brody, but Kit says that he turned a blind eye the last time, and look how that worked out. They lost Tinks. Brody is not his problem. Later, he tries to get some splaining done in the street with Sarah, but he's interrupted when Lou comes storming over to call him a prick for getting Brody arrested, and she warns Sarah off Kit, telling her that he's just as bad as Mick. Meanwhile, Bernie has gone to the cop shop to speak about Brody, and she gives him an alibi. What a stupid cow.
Yeah. What a stupid thing to
I
do.
was fucking furious at this. What are you doing, Bernie?
Yeah.
Here's what you do.
You don't even know.
Make amends with your son first.
Right, yeah.
Before you start to do anything with your potential grandson.
Right, yes. And also, stop doing illegal things. I thought everybody had learned their lesson about giving illegal alibis. The last time a member of that family gave a false alibi to Mick. So why are we still doing this? Why is this family so dumb?
I guess that Bernie is perpetually trying to make up for previous mistakes.
Right. She doesn't want him to go down the dark path that his dad did and that Paul was on when he was young. Because she keeps saying that Brody reminds her of Paul. And I'm like, how?
Yeah.
How? That kid looks nothing like Paul.
No.
Or Gemma.
And it always seems a good bit nastier than Paul ever was.
Yeah.
That's how I remember it anyway.
Right.
Brody's just out of the Stabby Teenage Centre.
Right.
He's already stolen from Bernie
Yes.
and got drunk and got thrown back inside again
Right.
briefly, then got out again, and then has got arrested again and thrown back in again.
Right,
It's
yeah.
like, I don't know that your interference here, Bernie, is going to make all that much of a difference.
It's not, unless, it means that Brody is now going to kill someone or hurt someone.
Because we were told, remember, that this wasn't the first time that Brody was in the STC.
Correct.
So he's a habitual wrong-un.
Right. Who has learned from his dad to always blame everybody else but himself.
Mm-hmm.
So he's on the path to becoming Mick Jr.
I never thought I'd say this, but Brody is no Mason.
No. That's true.
On Wednesday, Swain's got the sniffles. It's a good sneeze. As she meets up with Kit at Nina's Rolls, she tips him off about Bernie providing Brody with an alibi. So when the cafe closes, Kit asks Bernie what the fuck she's playing at. He tells her to retract her alibi or he'll have to get her done for perverting the course of justice. And yes, that is a quandary, says Bernie. When Bernie makes a plea for letting Brody off, after all, he's family, and Sarah comes in and hears the important bit out of all that. So Kit takes Sarah home and tells her that Brody might be his. This is a gossip that Sarah's been dying for days, and she suggests that he does what he thinks is for the best. So he runs into Brody outside the chippy. We haven't seen the outside of the chippy for a while.
No.
And asks him for a word back at his place, which sounds dodgy as fuck.
Yes, it does.
So Brody goes along with it, and the big announcement from Kit is that he's dropping his charges. His charges.
His charges, not his trousers.
Dropping his charges on the proviso that Brody cleans up his act, which is such a lame thing to say to a kid.
Right.
You start doing right now. You stop doing wrong. You hear?
Yeah, no.
What? Who're you?
No.
Brody reckons his dad will be running that prison if he gets sent down, and he doesn't care if Kit withdraws his statement or not. As this is going on...
Yeah, cop killers don't tend to do well in prison.
As this is going on, Bernie meets Sarah, who is now worried that Kit is the sort of person you never truly know. Bernie says that he's a work in progress, but Brody might be the making of him. Where she's getting this from, fuck only knows.
Who knows? It's like all the weird stuff she said about Paul.
Kit sees Lou in the Rovers and tells her to be a better example to Brody. Lou says how much Brody looks up to Mick, and Kit is like, yeah, well, by the time I'm finished with him, he won't be looking like anybody's hero.
Yes.
Meanwhile, Carla insists that Swain takes the day off and takes her home to look after her. And there she gets...
And her wee calf.
And she gets a call from Costello, Inspector, DI Inspector Costello.
Yes, the head honcho.
Telling her that someone has beaten the fuck out of Mick in prison. Sarah goes back to speak to Kit and says that she's been in too many destructive relationships and she needs to know that Kit won't lie or break her heart. She says it's not fair on me, and now that she thinks about it, it's not fair on Harry either. He says he doesn't know. Oh, says Sarah.
Right, and also, who's Harry?
She goes to walk away.
Harry has not been in any scene with Kit since Sarah and Kit started dating.
She goes to walk away, so he promises not to lie anymore, and that's all Sarah needs to hear. A concession of some nature. Meanwhile, Brody goes to Nina's Rolls to see why Bernie gave him an alibi, and she says that she hates the filth, and Brody reminds her of Paul, as she keeps on saying.
Yes.
At this, Brody gets a call from Lou about Mick.
And also Brody points out that her son is a police officer.
Brody wants to go visit Mick in prison, but Bernie thinks that he should stay where he is. Kit comes in and reckons this will probably make Mick's life a bit simpler now that he's going to get moved into a safer cell after getting his head kicked in. Swain goes to see Kit about Mick's assault, and Kit admits with very little prompting to organising it.
Right, yeah, why is he doing that? What's wrong with him that he's going to point blank tell lots of people that he organized the beating of Mick? What does that do for him?
He's relying on Swain feeling sufficiently loyal to him, or
to Tinker.
maybe to him and his intentions towards Tinker's memory.
Right.
Because I don't think...
It's like he doesn't know Swain at all.
Kit's arrested Swain, let's remember, and charged her with Moida, didn't he?
Conspiracy or something.
No, it was killing...
Yeah, but he wasn't dead.
No, but nobody knew that at the time.
They knew as soon as Tinker got there and there was no body. Remember poor Tinks? Where's the body?
No, he lost the body.
He lost the body.
But yeah, Swain doesn't really owe Kit anything here. And I think Kit knows that because he tells her, you can go and you can tell Costello if you like, but I did this because he murdered Tinker and he needed to feel some of the pain that Tinker felt, basically. Which I'm not too sure is entirely his motive here.
No.
Swain looks like she's going to keep her mouth shut about this, though. Mick is well enough to
Only
call
then she isn't.
Lou from hospital and tells her whoever did this is dead. He needs to know, though, that there's nothing going on between her and Kit. And she says Mick is the only one she's ever loved. She's forgetting that she was leaving him. She was leaving him.
Last week.
Right. Back home, Carla's disappointed to hear that Kit was behind Mick's assault and Swain doesn't plan on throwing him under the bus.
Right, yes. So I promise not to tell anyone except Carla.
Who isn't under any such promises.
Exactly.
She worries how this is going to reflect on Swain if she gets found out. Kit goes to see Mick in hospital and lets him know that he was behind the assault. He's telling everybody.
Right, yeah. Why would you tell Mick? Why, of all the people, would you tell Mick? Why would you give him something to blackmail you about? It doesn't make any sense.
No. It's like the time that Swain went to speak to Rob.
Right, yeah.
What could this possibly achieve?
It's like how in some action movies, the bad guy keeps trying to kill the good guy, even though he needs the good guy alive because of MacGuffin.
What could you possibly be talking about? Dum, 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 dum.
Like that's never happened in a James Bond film.
Yeah, so he lets him know that he was behind the assault and says that he can do it anytime he wants. He tells Mick to cut ties with Brody or else. Mick still thinks that Brody has nothing to do with Kit at this, I guess. Kit says that he's loving this. This is the most fun he's had in ages, and he could take Lou and Brody if he just snapped his fingers.
Which, why would he want to?
So on Friday, ahead of Mick's plea hearing, Lou and Brody are in Nina's roles. Lou says that Mick doesn't want him to go and see him in the state that he's in because he's kind of badly beaten up. Brody doesn't react well to this and whoops off. Meanwhile, Sarah is visiting Kit, who is coming in his pants at the thought of Mick's plea hearing coming up. Sarah imagines it'll go well, as Mick can only talk with his fists. Gulp, says Kit. Mick has an enormous amount of jam on his face when Lou visits him ahead of the hearing. He tells her that this was Kit's handiwork, and he's been threatened to cut ties with Brody. Mick worries that Kit will come for Lou next, not to beat her up or anything, but to steal her from him.
Yeah.
Lou tells him not to give up. So she's gone back to being loyal to Mick again.
Well, it's easy to be loyal to him while he is either in prison or in a hospital and can't beat you up.
Do you think that she's pinning her hopes on the fact that he'll get put away for life?
I don't know. It's so hard to read that character.
Because Brody is such a mini-me.
Yeah.
That him being on the outside and living with her,
Right.
I don't think would take too kindly to that sort of abandonment.
Yeah.
At the precinct, next to Tinker's memorial, Lou and Brody bump into Bernie and tell her that Mick has pleaded not guilty to Tinker's murder and it was Kit who beat him up. Bernie doesn't believe it.
But she will steal a chip or two from Brody. Who lets her?
Brody wants to
Give
go...
me some chips. All right, okay, here you go.
Brody wants to go and have a word with the tall detective, but Lou tells him to leave Kit to her. So at the flat, Kit can't believe Mick pleaded not guilty, and as Sarah is consoling him, not like that, Lou's at the door.
Well, not yet anyway.
And announces that she knows Kit was behind Mick's beating, and she insists that Brody's not his, and tells him to stay clear. So now nosy Sarah wants to know if this is true. Kit admits so his promise of no more lies lasted barely 24 hours, and that he says that he did get Mick beaten up and did try and keep Mick away from Brody, but really, he says, he did it for himself. Sarah, previously laying down the law about no more lies, seems to have had a change of heart, and she doesn't dump him.
No, because in the grand scheme of things, he's probably the most honest boyfriend she's ever had.
He does nothing but lie to her.
Right, yes. Because
But all of them do nothing. Well,
Right.
Adam was fairly, at least for a while,
yeah,
truthful.
yeah.
It was that she didn't believe him. That was the main thing, wasn't it?
Right, yeah. She wouldn't believe him. And also, if he had told her about his crazy ex when they first got together, then maybe she would have believed him about the crazy ex when she showed up. But Damien, not known for being truthful.
No.
Gary, not known for being truthful at the time he was with Sarah.
And non-murderous.
Right, yes. Let us never forget that Gary murdered Rana with a ceiling.
I don't think you'd get murder for that.
Right,
It'd be manslaughter.
manslaughter, but it's still he
Took a life.
caused a person to die and other people to get injured.
And he bludgeoned Rick the Chin to death.
Right, yes. So he has
So he
murdered
did. So he
someone.
did do that.
And he nearly killed David in the boxing ring. No, David
No,
nearly
that's the
killed
other
him.
way round. Why do you always get that the wrong way round?
Why do I always get that the wrong way around? Maybe because for me it's not believable that such a short guy.
It's
Beat
because
the
you
crap
think
out
that
of
Gary should be able to pummel the fuck out of David.
Yes, exactly. But it's quite possible that
Nick
he,
beats up David.
with his tears, he's going to be the next Doctor, is Nick?
With his tears?
With his tears.
Not his...
Yes, he drowns people with his not
Oh,
incessant
Nick's
tears.
crying again.
Nick is crying
Nick's
again.
crying again, everybody.
It's going to be on Doctor Who next season.
Is he?
No.
Oh.
I was making a joke about how... Remember when I was talking about Doctor Who on the list of lists the other day and how the Doctor cries in like every episode now? And at first
Helen,
it didn't
I've
bother
got
me.
so much
But-
in my head
but-
every week that I have to just resign last week's podcast
Now-
to the recycle bin.
Now I think Russell T Davies is just punking all of us by making poor Judy cry in every episode.
Sure.
Yeah. Listen to the list of lists, folks, for more entertaining talk about Doctor Who and other stuff.
That was the most half-assed advert for our sister podcast that I think I can imagine. Listen to our podcast about more of fucking whatever. Basically.
We have fun.
Did we get to the end of that? I think we got to the end
I
of that.
think we did.
Mick's pleaded not guilty. God knows why. Does make me worry that he's
Because-
going to go off with this somehow.
Because he thinks that because Kit confessed to him that he was behind him getting beat up, he thinks that he can manipulate this into Kit giving false evidence, or that he can say, that guy had me beat up. And then and think that will make the judge overturn everything, when it's like, okay, yeah, he beat you up, but you killed a police officer.
Mhm. So you're still going to jail forever.
Right. Yeah. Your DNA is all over that bat, as well as Tinker's blood. So you're out of luck, pal.
And you also kidnapped that woman that's high over there.
Right. Yes. So and this is really frustrating to me, because Brody does the same thing as Mick, saying, oh, well, you stitched him up and you're a liar and he's going to get off because he didn't really do it. Like, everybody in that family just denies that they do anything wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And it's terrible.
That's got to be how you.
No accountability whatsoever for their actions.
It's got to be how you justify it to yourself, I think. Because otherwise, and bad people know that they're doing bad things.
Yeah. But
I guess some of them do. But
we've had bad guys in the past who owned their badness, and were, Phelan owned his badness. He was like, yeah, I killed these people. So what? Go fuck yourself.
But it was all in an attempt to make a future for him and Eileen.
Right. Yeah. So they were the best of intentions in murdering people.
Well, there was intentions, I guess.
And, well, no, Joel was constantly saying, oh, no, I didn't do it. Or, no, I did it, but it's not what you think, sort of thing. The whole gaslighting bit. Joel was...
But again, I have to keep on coming back to how they're asking us to think that this blossomed out of Mick spending a year in prison after getting done for burning a woman with some bangers.
Right, because she couldn't be bothered to step back or shut the door. I still don't understand how the woman got burned. She was like a fully functioning adult. You step away from the fireworks, ma'am, and then you won't get burned. But yeah, like the whole fact that he's like, everything bad in my life is because you let me go down for this. Mm-hmm. That's not how life works, pal. Mm. If you keep doing bad things after you did the initial bad thing, that's on you.
And to be fair, that's what Kit said to him.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
You're just
I let
a
you go
bad guy
down
that
for
does
this
bad things.
one thing, but you've been milking it ever since.
And you were
constantly doing bad things and saying, well, no, it's not my fault.
And you're a bad guy before that.
Yeah, you stole from that grocer guy. You stole booze.
I guess that was just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Do you think that Swain's going to
Just the
keep her
tip.
mouth shut about this?
No.
You don't tell somebody in the show for it not to come back and haunt you.
Right, yeah. If she...
And Kit's telling everybody.
Right. Kit's telling everybody. And then Swain told Carla. And you know Carla's going to let it slip to somebody like Ryan or Bobby. Bobby!
Oh, dear.
Kit
Bobby
got
gets on
Mick.
Kit's radar.
Kit got Mick beat up.
I'm surprised that he managed to get it organised so quickly. It was like at the speed of thought, almost.
You know what? I have a feeling that it did not require an awful lot of persuading to get, some guards to beat the crap out of him.
Guards,
behind
do you
closed
think? So I would
doors.
just assumed it was other cons that did it.
Well, that too, but police or prison guards seem to feel that they're in the same fraternity as police officers. Mm-hmm. So they would beat a cop killer. No questions asked, I would imagine.
The way that I always saw this playing out was that someone was going to murder Mick and we're going to have a whodunit.
Yeah.
And it was going to end up being Lou, and that's how Lou goes out of it.
Really? Because you may remember, that's how Joel went out of the show, is he got murdered and we had a whodunit. Why would we have another one so quickly when that one kind of fell flat on its face?
I don't know how many whodunits
Because it was
we've had.
Racist Kelly.
We've had a whole number of whodunits, one after the other.
Right,
Another
yeah.
one like this is
Yeah,
no great
because
shakes.
the whole what happened to Racist Kelly was a whodunit thing. And then we find out it was Joel.
And briefly, who burned down number 8 was
Right.
was a whodunit.
Yeah, I guess we can count that.
It was.
It was Max, who we'll never see again. What's up with Dylan now that Brody's out, and also after he beat the shit out of Brody? That can't be like Dylan out of the show now,
No, I don't think so.
because he hasn't done his little Instagram talk on the Coronation Street Instagram page.
I think he's due out of the Stabby Teenage Centre fairly soon. I think his time's almost up.
Would he have gotten extra time after he beat the shit out of Brody?
That didn't happen, though.
It did happen.
Nothing got reported.
Yeah, but
Brody didn't make any complaint.
it's true. I could have sworn that one of the guards saw him beat
No.
Brody. Oh, well, it must have just been a really tall teenager.
Must have been
Must have been.
one of the guys that they forgot to let out. So that's how I saw it happening.
I don't know.
But for that to happen, he needs to get out, and I can't see how that happens. I can't see how he gets away with this.
No.
Oh well. Let's move on. Our next storyline is Sucks to be a Webster. On Monday at the Rape Hotel bar, Debbie is quizzing Ryan on her appearance. Does she look fit and healthy? She's thinking of starting a regime and probes him for advice.
But
and
not
he
like
agrees
that.
to be her personal trainer.
Yeah, for $60 an hour.
Ronnie comes in, but not to see Debbie. He
One
has
of
a
her-
date with one of the guests. This is Fiona, and she's quite handsy with Ronnie, which puts Debbie's nose out of joint a bit. At a booth, it seems that Ronnie is using Fiona to make Debbie jelly, as it seems that the two of them used to be scam artists or something together.
Something like that.
Fiona, though, really would like to see his arms and other parts of him in action. Instead, though, he goes off to speak to Debbie. Debbie wants to know who Fiona Longlegs is, but then decides it's none of her business. Ronnie wants to know where they went wrong, but Debbie takes a call from a guy called Ross and walks away. Ronnie asks Carl who this Ross character is, but Carl doesn't help, and more importantly, doesn't want to help.
No.
He's too busy on a call to what sounds like a payday loan place. Debbie climbs out of the bathroom window, so Ronnie doesn't get a chance to explain who Fiona Longlegs is after all, but he won't leave until he speaks to Debbie. So Carl goes to bar him, and the two of them are about to come to blows when Ryan breaks it up, and then it's suddenly and
In his new
strangely
shirt.
instantly calm again,
Yay.
and they're buddies.
Right, yes, it's the magic of Ryan's new shirt.
Ronnie thought that he had something special with Debbie and needs to know what he did wrong. Debbie, meanwhile, is meeting Ross at speed dial. Ross runs a dementia support group. She talks about the changes that she's made to her diet and to her lifestyle and reckons her symptoms are improving. Ross isn't falling for it, though, and asks what support she's getting from her family, and she lies and she says that her family have been her rock. She and Ronnie meet in the bistro later. Debbie says it might be for the best if he doesn't come round to the hotel anymore. Ronnie's confused that it's okay for her to see Ross, but not for him to see Fiona Longlegs, who he isn't seeing. Debbie says there was no one else, and they just ended, but Ronnie doesn't believe it. Have you seen these arms, he says.
His arms get a shout out this week
His
on the
arms
show.
have
I
been
love
getting
it.
shouts out
I love
quite
it.
regularly.
Like talking about his guns and everything. And I'm like, yes, the writers do listen to this podcast.
Debbie leaves and Ronnie calls Fiona after all to offer his services.
Fiona, you're after all. Is after all her last name? Is it her
Those
given
long
name?
legs.
I thought Longlegs was her middle name. Or her maiden name. And after all is her married name. To Mr. and Mrs. After All.
A daughter.
Only that's not right. It'd be Mr. and Mrs. Longlegs.
And it's to Dr. and Mrs. Longlegs.
Right, yes. Is Dr. Longlegs also played by Nicolas Cage?
Yes. On Wednesday, Ronnie meets up with Fiona, and she's dodgy as fuck, as it turns out, and wants Ronnie to sell a faulty car. This seems to be the business that she and Ronnie used to be involved in and now are involved in once more. He goes for some Dutch courage at the Rovers and meets up with his new best friend Carl, who he was about to fight with yesterday. And Carl thinks that hitting the booze early because of this Fiona woman. Ronnie insists not and then leaves. At the precinct, a reasonably drunk Ronnie is given the buyer the big sell on this car, which the bloke explains is for his daughter as a present following the death of her mother.
From cancer.
And this gives Ronnie a bit of a change of heart, and he sends the guy on his way. He's about to drive back home when Carla intervenes, reminding Ronnie of his drinking and asks who the car belongs to. Ronnie says the car isn't stolen, he's just selling it for Fiona Longlegs. Carl says that he'll take the car back to Fiona. And when he does this, he tries to muscle in on Ronnie's action here. He says he can get MOTs for her dodgy cars from his garage. She's intrigued and says that she'll drop the first car off tomorrow. Carl shits himself. Tomorrow? But that's tomorrow.
Yes. I need more time.
Tomorrow or nothing.
Yes.
So on Friday, Abby's shocked to see that it's Carl that's working on cars at the garage.
Right, yes, in his stripy socks, which make him look like the Wicked Witch of the West underneath Dorothy's house.
Yes.
No, the Wicked Witch of the East. Apologies, because Wicked Witch of the West is
you
the one who's still
apologising to?
alive. Our listeners, who I know have seen The Wizard of Oz, because 89% of them are friends of Dorothy.
You think?
It may be higher than that. That's the only reason why you're still on Twitter, is because of our gays, our gay following on Twitter. Because I'm always like, why don't you just kill the Twitter account? Twitter is bad and filled with Nazis. And you're like, yes, but what will the gays do?
I don't say that. I've never said that. I covet my 4.1 thousand followers. That's what I covet.
Who are all gay.
I don't think they're all gay.
Most of them are gay.
I think some of them are gay.
And that's awesome. We love our gays.
I was very close to doing that again this week. This week was a tough week on Twitter.
Yeah.
Anyway, on Friday, Abby is shocked to see that it's Carl that's working on cars at the garage. Kev sanctioned all this because he's so very tired and Tyrone is otherwise engaged. Kev's also shaved his head. He was aiming for Dwayne The Rock, he says.
Yeah, whereas
Well
everybody
done.
else calls
Well
him
done, Kev.
Jason Statham. Does he think The Rock is Dwayne The Rock Johnson's last name? Why does he call him Dwayne The Rock instead of Dwayne The Rock Johnson?
Because he's got it wrong. That's the
Dwayne
funny
Johnson.
bit. That's the funny bit.
And
He's got it
not
wrong.
even bald, Kev. His hair is cut really, really short, but he's not bald.
It's a one all over.
Yeah, which does not really, I mean, women shave their heads. Come on, Kev, you can do it too. Just shave it all off.
He said it was falling out thanks to the chemo, so...
Right. So he got a one all over instead of
got one all
shaving the
over.
whole thing off and, wearing a bandana or something?
But you'll...
Come on, Kev.
I don't know that I can
Commit.
take Kev in a bandana. I can't take Kev in a bandana saying Dwayne The Rock.
It's like our waitress at Darbs who all of a sudden is constantly wearing a bandana on her head. I don't know why.
I think because of the heat.
Last week it was red and now this week it was white.
Anyway, Abby wants to know what Carl's agenda is, and he promises that everything is above board, but then he takes a call from Fiona accepting delivery of the first dodgy motor.
Uh-oh.
When Abby catches him later looking over MOT forms, he says he was just acquainting himself with them. Carl lays it on thick with Abby so that she stays out of his way as he gets a message from Fiona letting him know about another car.
Another one.
And that's as far as we get with that this week. Now, you know what happens with cars that get dodgy MOTs, don't you?
Yeah.
They crash and
crash.
the people inside die in a ball of flames.
Yes.
Oh dear, Carl, what have you got yourself into here?
Right. And who on the street needs a car? Somebody's gonna want to buy one of these dodgy cars that we know.
Yeah, I think the market for dodgy cars is recently widowed men buying cars for their daughter.
Or I know, Eileen? Is it Billy? Is Billy gonna buy a new car? Or a dodgy car? and die in a fiery crash?
Oh, you think they're going for the long game here?
Maybe. I don't know.
Because I don't think Billy's leaving until next year.
Is it Dylan? Is Dylan going to get out of the the stabby teenager center and Sean's going to be so happy he's out, he buys him a dodgy car, which will crash in a ball of flame?
All of these are perfectly reasonable guesses, I would say, Helen. All of them are reasonable.
Maybe all three of them together. Maybe Eileen and Billy and Dylan and Addie are all going to get in a dodgy car together and just like drive off a cliff like Thelma and Louise.
Or the end of the young ones. We've never really found out what the deal is with Carol's business in Germany.
No.
Apart from that it's
Failing.
hemorrhaging money.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's hemorrhaging money so that Carol doing a few dodgy MOTs is going to change anything.
I wouldn't imagine so. This is the first really dodgy thing he's done. Won't be the last, though.
Yeah, if you don't count hitting on your brother's wife.
But he didn't know that was his brother's
But
wife.
he knows it now.
He does know it now.
I still quite like him, though. I think he's interesting. There's no way in the world that man is Kev's brother, though.
No. or Debbie's brother, for that matter.
No.
I think Kit is his dad, too.
Quite possibly. And I still like how Carl and Debbie have developed a very close relationship, albeit very quickly.
Yes, and also he's kind of keeping her from telling the rest of the family about her diagnosis at this point. I don't like that.
Yeah, a little bit. All right, we'll move on to Theo No Sleeves now. This is on Friday that Theo misses Julie's funeral that we'll talk about in a little bit because of a job that's gone long, or that's what he tells us anyway. He turns up for the wake at the Rovers later and seems in great spirits until a man comes into the pub. This man is Noah, a clerk at Billy's church, and he's 900 years old and has some worrying news about the weather. Theo rushes out, white as a sheet. Todd finds him having a panic attack and is about to call him an ambulance.
Theo, you're an ambulance.
But instead brings him down to earth by being a beefcake.
Well, yes, doing the what are three things that you see.
And he reveals that Noah was one of the guys who was at the conversion therapy and prayed over him, even though he looks about the same age as Theo.
Yeah, I was really confused by that.
This is why Theo didn't make the funeral, because Noah would have been there. Todd wants to make a scene about this, but is talked down by Theo, and everyone acts all friendly-likes when Billy introduces Noah to Theo. Todd fumes. And later during the speeches, Todd is sure to make it clear that love is love, and that Julie was so supportive of him and Theo being together, and how it's weird how not everyone is. Noah throws daggers at Theo. When Noah leaves, Todd follows him out and gives him a piece of his mind. Noah says that he doesn't hate the sinner, he hates the sin, and he'll pray for them both.
Go fuck yourself, Noah.
Todd tells him Theo is screwed up for life thanks to him, and of course Theo comes out and hears the end of this, as Noah calmly walks away and curiously ends up speaking to Steve about the possibility of renting out the community centre. And then they gossip about Eileen and life insurance.
Right, and then Steve gives him a ride in his taxi.
In the yard of the Rovers, Theo says a row in the street was the last thing that he wanted. Todd apologises, but Theo wants to be left alone with his arms, and then smashes a glass and cuts up his hand. And that's as far as we get with that this week.
Yes.
I was so relieved that we came back to this storyline because it was so interesting a couple of weeks ago when it was mentioned, but it was mentioned in such a way that you think, well, maybe that's just to explain why he's having trouble accepting his sexuality and stuff, and then we're never going to mention this again. I'm glad that we've mentioned that again.
I'm just pleased that Theo is officially Todd's boyfriend, because I thought that Theo had dumped him again because of the whole thing with his daughter. But no, they're apparently still together.
Yes.
Which is nice. It's nice. I like Theo.
I do too.
Yeah. Remember when he stood up for Sean? That was really nice.
He's a good guy to have around, I think.
He
and
is a good guy.
He was ready to stand up for Eileen and the storyline that we're about to talk about.
Right. Absolutely. And also, apologize to Eileen for being there for the funeral. And she's like, no, it's fine. We like you. You're good.
Yeah.
It's fine.
See, Corey, we don't ask for a lot.
No. It's nice. It's a very sweet, blossoming relationship between these two men.
Yeah,
I'm invested.
I like it a lot. I mean, I guess everyone's different. Theo's panic attack's nothing like any panic attack I've ever had, but your mileage may vary.
Right.
But what I really liked about it was the say three things, and he says a bin in the wall or something.
Right, and then the
And then
beefcake.
the beefcake. And
Yeah.
then has to laugh at it because if there's one thing that Todd isn't.
It's a beefcake. Which is fine, not everybody has to be one.
But
He's
that's the whole point of that, is that it got Theo laughing and
Right.
and centered him again.
And yeah, it also causes you to focus. It helps you to focus on your surroundings. I think somebody has done this on Corrie before with a panic attack. And I've seen it done elsewhere. I think this is like a common thing that you do to help someone come down from a panic attack. Mm-hmm. What are three things that you see?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was funny because, Theo's leaning against that wall, kind of hyperventilating. And Todd comes out and he's like, "What's wrong? Are you having a heart attack?" And I said, "No, man, he's having a panic attack." And then Theo says it's panic attack. And I was like, I was right.
Oh, Dr. Broom. It was so obviously a panic attack, though.
Yes.
Or it was so obviously what I think. Again, I'm going to, and I don't mean to.
I've had panic attacks like
disparage
that.
this. Have you?
Yeah, where you're hyperventilating and can't stop and you're terrified. Yeah.
Oh, the terrified and the can't stop, absolutely. But
You never hyperventilated in a panic attack?
That sort of loudly hyperventilating. No.
Can you quietly hyperventilate?
Yes, you can.
Never seen anybody quietly hyperventilate.
You absolutely can.
It was very...
Of course, I just have "Don't Panic" tattooed on my arm to stop me panicking.
Right, yes.
Which works.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
It works for me sometimes, too, to look at your arm and it says "Don't panic." That's very helpful.
Yep. I'm going to get a wee whale above it
Yes.
and a wee
A
bowl
pot
of petunias.
Yes. We pot of petunias.
And maybe Marvin the paranoid android. But I don't want,
I
I don't know
think-
if I wanted to get too busy.
I think Marvin may be overkill. Aren't you still going to get a tattoo of what's his name with a cone on his head?
I don't have a place in my body for it.
Your leg.
I want it someplace that people can see it. That's the whole point of getting tattooed.
People can see your legs.
Who?
You wear shorts all the time.
Yeah.
It could be on the opposite. It could balance out the Tennant's T tattoo.
I was laughing this week as I thought, I've got a big red T tattooed on my leg.
Yep.
For a beer that I can't get, and I don't drink beer anymore anyway.
Right, correct. And that people constantly think is for Texas University or something.
Yeah, it could be worse. Yeah, I like Theo and Todd. I like this introduction. I like how it's been further introduced that it's somebody who Billy knows. So, and presumably, and by the looks of it, someone that Billy likes.
Right.
And somebody
but
that
Billy has
Billy
no
leans
idea.
on to be an assistant and an aid to what's going on.
How would Billy not have any idea that this guy was involved in conversion therapy for the Catholic, well, not the Catholic Church, for the church? You'd think that would be something that would be on his CV.
And you would think that Noah would also know that Billy's gay.
Right. Well, he says that he knows he's gay, that he hates Billy's gayness and not the Billy, even though Billy's gayness is part of Billy. You cannot separate gayness from a person who is gay. That's the whole point. They're born that way. So shove your thing that the Bible absolutely does not say right up your arse.
Right!
Up your arse.
Not done that in a while.
Ha ha.
I'd say we've not done that in a while every time we do that. And that's the first time that you've said ho ho. So finally that gets a reaction. All right, our final storyline tonight is ill-timed proposal number 2. On Monday, Eileen, she gets
And also, fuck you, Coronation Street.
Yeah, she gets a text from Jason, who won't be able to make it to Julie's funeral. That's a shame, isn't it, Helen? She's amazed.
You know what's hilarious? When Eileen first said that, I was like, oh, does Jason know Craig?
I thought exactly the same thing.
I totally forgot.
I don't think Jason does know Craig, does he?
Why would he come all the way
Well,
home
maybe,
for Craig?
Maybe the crossover.
He's
I
going to
don't
be
remember
really
it.
disappointed because the funeral is just for family.
It's going to come all the way from Thailand to find out the funeral's in Norfolk.
It took me an embarrassingly long time to realize that it was Julie's funeral
Yeah.
that Jason is not going to be there for.
My original note did say coming to Tinker's funeral for some reason, I'm sure. Oh, quickly remove that. Julie's funeral. That makes much more sense.
Yes, it does.
She's amazed that George can bury his emotions at times like these, and she's saying it as a compliment.
Yes, she is.
But George insists that he does feel it. He feels it hard.
Yes. But not like that.
At the Rovers, Eileen's comments have hurt George, and he speaks to Glenda about this. Eileen comes in and we learn that Julie's body has been released and they can give her a funeral now. To make him sound more human and natural, he tells Eileen that he talks to Julie's corpse. In the meantime, the cops want to speak to Eileen about the toxicology report. George is talking to Brian about all this in Nina's roles when Eileen comes in. The drugs in Julie's system were the ones that Eileen was prescribed, and when Brian makes an ambiguous comment about this, Eileen flies off the handle and bans him from the funeral and then flees. Back home with Brian, George thinks Eileen needs some space and tells Brian not to take it personally. Brian has brought a ham by way of apology. It's an apology ham.
It's an apology ham.
Eileen comes back and apologises and feels bad for not spotting what Julie was up to. And later, George shows them the order of service, which is confusing because Eileen's picture's on the front of it.
With Julie.
Julie madly deeply, it says.
Yes, it does.
And they use that one photo of Julie that appears everywhere
Yes.
for looking a little bit goofy.
Yes.
On Wednesday, George is home to fix Eileen a lovely ham sandwich, but she's very nonplussed by the offer and reckons George is mistaking things that he likes for things that she likes because he's got you those rolls that you like.
Yeah.
No, those are rolls that you like. There's no pleasing Eileen.
Don't you want some of this forgiveness ham? No, I do not want any of that forgiveness ham.
Meanwhile, Theo comes in after a failed meeting with the kids that were a no-show. Todd thinks that they'll come round, but Eileen says that she wouldn't bank on it. Thanks, Eileen. People ultimately disappoint you, she says. At the Undertaker's, George is now convinced that because Eileen didn't want a roll and ham, that means that she doesn't love him anymore. Todd explains to the Undertaker that Eileen is grieving and needs him to be supportive. George doesn't think that she needs him at all. So Todd goes to the cab office to speak to Eileen. According to her, there's nothing wrong, and she's not about to dump him, but thinks that she has been taking her anger out on him. Poor wee shit. When George comes home, Eileen apologises for taking her grief out on him, and George accepts and announces that he's taken Eileen away for a couple of weeks after Julie's funeral. Oh, that sounds exciting. Where are you taking me to? Great Yarmouth. Oh,
What's in Great Yarmouth?
I don't think anything much is in Great Yarmouth. I think it's like
Then why is it great?
I think it's because there'll be a lesser Yarmouth somewhere.
Ah.
I think it's like Is it like Blackpool? I don't know. Maybe it's like Blackpool.
We don't
You don't know
talk-
what Blackpool's like either.
Yeah, I know what Blackpool's like. It's
Blackpool
like the
is-
Jersey Shore.
Blackpool is like the Canadian side of Niagara Falls.
Right, yes. Or the Jersey Shore.
Okay, good. George is disappointed by her reaction. On Friday, George is talking to the dead ahead of Julie's funeral, and there are a few references to Paul Heaton from the beautiful South here. George tells dead Julie that Eileen may not be herself, but will pull through. Okay, says dead Julie. Outside as they wait on the hearse, Sean is bitching that Eileen isn't in bright colours like everyone else, like Julie's request was.
Yes. It was kind of weird to see all those people in bright colors at a funeral.
George tries to reassure Eileen, but she wanders off as he's mid-sentence to give Brian a letter from Julie. He wonders if it would hurt this much if she hadn't come back, and he only heard about it after, Brian says. And then he quotes from Romeo and Juliet, except he recites it from Romeo's point of view, and it's actually written as Juliet's soliloquy. And don't worry, Helen, I've written it all down. Take her and cut her out in little stars, and she will make the face of heaven so fine that all the world will be in love with night.
And once again, Brian's getting boring moment of the week. Quoting fucking William Shakespeare.
Is he getting it for that, or is he getting it for explaining to everybody what carpe diem means? Mary pats his back to get him to stop,
Yes.
and no one gives Billy a seat in the hearse as it drives off.
Yeah, he has to follow it on foot.
At the Rovers later, we hear about how great the service was. Again, we hear about how great it was. We don't get to see it.
Yeah.
Brian, though, demands some satisfaction. He's read the letter, and it talks about a life insurance policy. And he accuses Eileen of lying about it. And it gets increasingly wound up. And then Tracy gets involved. And no one tells Brian, this isn't the time or the place.
No.
Or tell him to shut the fuck up because
And
it's
also,
none of
not
your
fucking
business.
business, Brian. Why would Julie put that in a letter to Brian? Oh, I'm dying. Oh, by the way, I've left all of my life insurance money to my sister, who it makes sense because she is my next of kin.
Okay, bye now.
Okay, bye. Bye. Blah. That was Julie dying.
So now everyone, particularly, and you know, we didn't see how Julie died, so it might well have been exactly like that. So now everyone, particularly Tracy, thinks that Eileen killed Julie for the insurance and got Todd to embalm the body early to cover it up, which results in Eileen throwing a glass of Prosecco over the cow when Tracy mentions starting a podcast. After Eileen...
Did you feel a little pride when a podcast was mentioned on this show for the first time ever?
Oh, the podcasts have been mentioned before.
Have they?
Amy was doing a podcast.
Oh, that's right. Amy did that one podcast episode that one time.
Where Paul swore like a trooper on it or something. And
yeah.
I can't remember.
And then Amy did not do the podcast ever again because Paul swore.
After, Eileen is worried about what the Wrexham girls are going to think about this. This is Julie's netball team, I think. But when George announces...
Are they also sponsored by Ryan Reynolds?
Yeah.
The Wrexham football.
Oh, you don't need to explain it. I get it. They got promoted again.
They did.
George announces that they won't be coming to the wake, and Eileen seems to blame George for allowing all of Julie's final wishes to be scuppered. Glenda decides to get things back on track by announcing a game that Julie wanted them to play, where you tell the person to your right your innermost dream. So Tracy whispers something to Steve so personal about Tommy O that Steve throws up in his mouth a wee bit and leaves. George's revelation is that he wants to marry Eileen, and as he proposes, Jason comes in, and of course Eileen rushes off to greet him, leaving George's proposal hanging like a fart in the air.
Yeah, which is where it belongs, because she just buried her sister, and that's her son who we haven't seen in years.
Years.
Although Eileen has seen him, because remember when he broke his back and Eileen went off the show for a while?
Yeah.
To live in the jungle?
He's healed well.
He has healed well. And he's got a very nice tan as well.
Glenda sees him, and she's having some sexual thoughts
Wow.
at a wake, and she doesn't know if it's right or not, but sorry
it's
for
there.
sorry for your loss, Brian, she says. That was hilarious. George reminds everyone about the proposal, and Eileen says that she thought that he was joking. Hurt and embarrassed, George goes off with his tail between his legs. Ouch, says Jason. Privately, he tells Eileen that Lindsay has dumped him. Oh well. Meanwhile, George tells Glenda that he proposed, and Glenda wonders why he chose the saddest day of Eileen's life to do that. As this is happening, Tracy is bringing Jason up to speed on the life insurance and embalming evidence. Later, Eileen makes a speech about Julie and how she's feeling in Julie's absence today. Julie felt things deeply, and Eileen hasn't been known to be like that at all. And then she can't go on, so Todd has to take over. Privately, George tries to bring up the proposal again, but Eileen can't talk about this today and begs him to drop it, while Jason suggests that the two of them sing karaoke, We Don't Talk Anymore. Which is a bit of a shit thing to do.
Right. What was the second song?
That was the second song. The first song was Don't Go Breaking My Heart or something?
No, because Don't Go Break My Heart is what Jason and Sean sang terribly. Why all of a sudden do these people not be able to sing? Because we've heard Mary sing before. She can sing a lot better than what she did this week.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's weird. I understand that it's funny for people to sing poorly, but don't make characters who we know can sing well sing poorly.
I know. I've liked the karaoke when Glenda was doing it.
Yep.
And I thought it was very funny.
Yep.
I hope we're not doing this an awful lot now, because it's going to get boring.
Right.
It's going to get overused,
Which
especially when they do it the way that they did it tonight.
Which I think is why they were like, you know what would be fun to try, guys? Sing badly.
Just like that.
Yeah. Don't sing badly. Sing well, please, because singing badly hurts my ears.
Eileen rushes off home, where she cries as she hugs Julie's photo and ignores George's call. He eventually comes home and promises not to talk about the proposal, but then immediately starts talking about the proposal. He says that he loves her and wants to spend the rest of his life with her, so she's forced to tell him that although he's the loveliest man, she doesn't want to marry him. Not now, not ever. Now pass the ham. And that's how we end this week's episode.
Oofed. Oofed. Broom. That is crazy. Oh, well, I understand that, my timing wasn't great, so we'll revisit this a little bit later in a few weeks. No, we won't, because I don't want to marry you, even though you're a really nice guy. And I married a serial killer. Is he just too nice, do you think? Do you think Eileen needs somebody a little rougher on the edges?
Well, they've tried to paint him out to be a bit of a inconsiderate goofball.
Lately, yeah.
But I don't know, like you said the other week, they were getting their hole in the cab office not so long ago.
Correct. Which was nice.
And I think it's hard to imagine what's rougher around the edges than that. It's...
Especially when George has a whole house you can have sex in. You could have sex in every room of George's house and never be disturbed because nobody lives there.
I think it's disappointing that it's come to this because Sue Cleaver's leaving, obviously. And this is how they have to break them up, otherwise we lose George as well. And I don't think the show particularly wants to lose George.
No, we haven't squeezed all the juice out of George yet.
Because George and Glenda together in the show is kind of delightful.
Yes, and we never want to get rid of Glenda.
And remember, there was
the day Glenda's off the show is the last day I ever watched the show.
Right. And then we've got things that happened in the past where George and Eileen got together, but it looked like for a minute George and Mary were going to get together.
Just like Brian and Mary were supposed to be together, and then all of a sudden they weren't because Julie's back, and Julie is the love of Brian's life. So how is that going to...
So there's scope, I think what I'm saying is for George to be involved in other things. And with him and Todd together, there's far too much going on there.
Fantastic.
This isn't a Billy situation. We don't have to be worried about George, I don't think.
No.
But how this has had to be played out is by portraying one or two things. It's like George being a bit of a goofball and a bit inconsiderate.
And overbearing and not reading the cues.
And then Eileen being just so grumpy and...
Such a cow.
And blaming him for everything and biting off every attempt that he makes, even just to have
Make her a sandwich.
Right, to have a lunch together.
Eileen, you are a sandwich.
Yeah, see, you forced that one.
You're a ham sandwich on those rolls that we know you like. You're lying about those rolls.
Yeah, those rolls that you like. No, I don't like those rolls. Come on, for fuck's
you,
sake.
they're rolls.
The rolls.
The rolls, how bad
Of course
could they
you
be?
like them. It's bread.
You cannot mess up rolls. I mean, you can, but you can rarely mess up rolls.
Even the bad rolls that I used to make were edible. The ones before I got the recipe just right.
Right. Throw some gravy on them, they're perfect.
Oh, exactly. But cheese, melt it, you're in heaven. So yeah, it's this contrivance of them not getting along is a little sad to watch and a little difficult to watch, because while Sue Cleaver was happy in the show, the two of them together, they played off each other really well, because Eileen was grumpy, but George was a bit more optimistic
and happy.
And for an Undertaker, that's an amusing quality.
Very kind. George is very kind and sensitive to people. They made a great match. But, it's like that whole thing with Steve and Tracy where they were wearing matching pajamas and then all of a sudden they'd broken up.
But then even tonight they had great chemistry when Tracy gets the Prosecco thrown over her and Steve's cleaning her front. And Tracy's like, you're enjoying that a little bit too much, aren't you? Just those little moments of them together.
Right.
Where it doesn't feel contrived and it feels natural to got two characters behaving how you would think they would towards each other.
Right, yeah, where you think...
Works really well.
There's no reason why these two had to break up.
Right.
Because they're still great together. And Tommy O's gone.
Yeah. I mean, from here, I don't know where the two of them go. I don't think Great Yarmouth is on the cards anymore.
Yeah.
But It's just a shame to see George, who's so vulnerable, getting disappointed like that. But for fuck's sake, George, you don't propose to a woman at her sister's funeral, and then you don't keep on going on about it when her ex-pat son
Right.
comes back.
Right. You were right. Great Yarmouth is pretty much Blackpool.
Is it?
Yeah, there's like a Ferris wheel and a roller coaster and stuff.
There you go.
It's right by the water.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's essentially Blackpool. Or the Jersey Shore.
And he's been talking to Glenda about this, and Glenda's been giving him great advice.
Right. Yes, because
That
Glenda
is-
told him not to propose.
Right.
But Glenda is also in his corner. Like, she's not afraid to stand up for him when he won't stand up for himself.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is really nice, because let's not forget, it wasn't that long ago that they were at each other's necks over their dad's will.
Yeah, we didn't like that.
No, we didn't like that. So yeah, George is great with Glenda. George is great with Todd. I'm not worried about them running out of things for George to do. Because Eileen hasn't really been in any storylines of her own in ages, except for like the whole Julie thing. Whereas
Yeah.
Todd's had a lot of stuff to do, not just with that, but with the whole Theo thing, and then also with Paul dying. You know, he's had a lot of stuff going on all over the place.
Yeah, since she left for the jungle, Eileen's been very much a secondary character almost. She's just there to provide some comic relief, to be the straight guy in
To
a situation.
own that house that a million people live in.
Right. Your thoughts on Jason? Because Jason was before you started watching the show.
It was funny watching him hug Todd, because it's like, the last time you saw your brother, that wasn't his face.
Yeah. I almost saw a little bit of, who are you?
Yeah, I noticed
If it
that
was
too.
there, it was a good joke.
Yeah, which was funny. There was like a pause before the hug of, should I hug you?
It's been 10 years since he was last in the show.
Wow.
And he has changed. I remember him from Celebrity Big Brother fairly recently. And I think he was in a couple other soaps. He was in Neighbours for a bit. He won Dancing on Ice.
Oh, nice.
See, the most recent thing that I remember of him comes from classic Corrie, when he was a little bit homophobic towards his brother. So it's difficult not to remember that part of Jason's character. But
Right.
there was like years and years of him
Right,
after that.
yeah.
But when he found out that his brother was gay, he did not take it very well.
Yeah.
But they're obviously...
Right, yeah, that was a decade ago.
They're obviously... No, it was more than that.
Right, yeah.
But they're obviously fine now.
Yeah. Things were very different 10 to 20 years ago.
2004, 2005-ish.
I know.
I guess.
Isn't that weird?
It's hard to
How
imagine, certainly.
how the world is so very different than it was just 20 years ago.
Yeah. Tracy, though, just shut up.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, because this is the second time that she's there in the room just to be mouthy and to take it a little too far.
For something that's got nothing to do with her.
Right, yeah. And it's just to hurt other people.
Yeah, she has no dog in this
At a
fight.
funeral.
Yeah.
At a funeral. It's like, I like Tracy being kind of obnoxious and stuff, but choose wisely where you're going to pull this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This is not it.
Yeah, and Brian's
And Brian, all of a
insistence
sudden,
on being involved in Julie's death and
Right.
and the insurance stuff is like, and I think eventually
The
Eileen
fact-
does say, this is none of your business.
Right.
But she doesn't say it loud enough, and she doesn't say it often enough.
no,
It's nobody's business.
it's like Gemma not saying, look, Mick threatened my kids and kidnapped my mom. Shut up.
Mm-hmm.
It went too far. And the fact that for some reason, Eileen finds this, just happens to find this letter with Brian's name on it. Oh, I found this amongst Julie's things. So obviously she wanted you to have it. It's not obvious that she wanted him to have it, because if she wanted him to have it, it would have been on top of her things instead of buried below her things after you dug through them.
and maybe
but also,
you just wait until after the funeral before
Right.
you deliver it.
And also, is it really realistic that Julie would mention her life insurance going to Eileen in a letter to Brian? I don't think so. That feels far-fetched to me.
And given the way that the relationship is going at the moment between Eileen and Brian, if I'm Eileen, I'm steaming that letter open before I give him anything.
Right, yeah.
He doesn't know it was in an envelope. Just open the envelope, read the letter, give him the letter. You'd be checking. Well, maybe you wouldn't. I don't know. I think it would cross Eileen's mind in this situation.
It's like it's just a little too manufactured, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's all a means to an end, Helen,
Right.
isn't it? Oh well, that was the week. There was Coronation Street. What was your moment of the week?
I don't know. What's your moment of the week?
I don't know if it's your moment of the week.
Nothing really stood out to me.
It was a
On Coronation Street, that is.
trickier week to pick a moment from.
Yeah, because there was. Is it Jason Returns?
See, Jason returned, and within 5 minutes, he's got a beer and singing karaoke.
Right. Which is fine.
Is it? Oh, it felt strange.
With Sean, another gay person. So he's obviously
loves
very
Sean.
much over his homophobia. Is it Todd reading the riot act to the homophobic priest?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. That was good.
That was good. That's our
Moment of the week.
And I think you've already spoiled it, but I'm going to ask you anyway, Helen, what was your boring moment of the week?
You know what? I say I'm going to give it to Brian quoting Shakespeare, but actually, isn't it Daniel and Bertie leaving that teddy bear there?
No.
And then Daniel saying to his wee son, who barely understands the concept of death, if you want, we can stay a while longer. Does Bertie even remember Craig?
Yeah, I'm not sure he does.
I guess technically Craig is Bertie's second cousin
Oh, through Sinead.
through Sinead. But still, who brings a 4-year-old toddler to a memorial and say, that's a really nice teddy you got there. Leave it here for the dead guy. Did they buy that bear? Did he buy that bear to put on Craig's thing and then hand this plush toy to a child and then tell the child to leave the bear by a picture of a man he barely knows?
Craig Tinker, we barely knew you. That is our...
Boring moment of the week.
You're welcome, Brian. Stop quoting.
And stop quoting Shakespeare
Poets.
wrongly.
Yeah, because that was wrong.
Yes, Juliet's soliloquy.
Although, you know what? Mary and Brian got the words wrong to Islands in the Stream as well, and that annoyed the hell out of me because you do know how many times I listened to that song in my childhood? My childhood where Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton were beloved saints.
Evil dies tonight!
That's right.
Yay!
On to our This is our non-scientific poll into our Twitter followers and their thoughts on this week's show. The votes this week are not as resounding as last week, which I don't think
Well,
is a
obviously
surprise.
not. Nobody died this week.
Zzz was 27.3%, meh was 36.4%, and yay was also 36.4%.
Yeah.
Still some time to run on that, so everything can change, but pretty close at the moment.
Yeah.
Holly writes, I went meh before I saw Sarah's leather skirt, so I should have gone with yay. I'm very sorry. That's absolutely fine, Holly, no worries. But of course, we don't let our Twitter scores influence our own scores, Helen. That would be ridiculous. So tell me, what is your score out of 10 this week? I think you went with 8 last week.
Yeah, it's not an 8
It's
week
not an
this
8.
week. I'm going to go for an even 5. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great either.
I'm going to go with 6 because I quite liked the Mick getting beaten up stuff.
Right, yeah. I would have liked to have seen Julie's funeral.
I would like to have seen that. I'm quite pleased to see Jason back again.
Yes.
As much as I deride shows for just bringing back old characters, it is good to see old characters. Let's hope that they don't give Jason cancer.
Yeah.
Let's hope for that.
Yeah. Yeah. because, Kev has to die first before we give anyone else cancer.
I'm giving it a 6 this week.
Sounds good.
All right, shall we wrap this one up then?
Yes.
This episode was brought to you with thanks to our friends of the podcast. Daisy, French Helen, Pickles, DT, Wendy, Noel, Canadian Helen, Christy, Shandy, English Victoria, Aurora Yvonne, Heather Westerfield, Russell Whiting, Jackie B, Brittany Porter, Laurie Anna, Tina, Stephen, Leah, Tara J, Fiona B, Canadian Jennifer, and Josephine Otingi. Thank you so very much, people. We really appreciate it.
And thank you to you too.
If you've ever proposed at a funeral, writing to tell us about it, we're the talkofthestreet@gmail.com, and we're at Corrie Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Threads and Blue Sky. Or you can reach us the old-fashioned way, the Talk of the Street, PO Box 12, Eden Rapids, Michigan 48827. You can shout me and Helen a coffee or become a friend of the podcast by heading to ko-fi.com, that's ko-fi.com/the Talk of the Street, or patreon.com/the Talk of the Street. Check out voggle.co.uk for links to our merch store, YouTube channel and blog. And if you're so inclined, please leave a rating and a review on the iTunes or your podcast provider of choice. And be sure to check out our pop culture sister podcast, The List of Lists.
Jimmy Dean made sausage, wrote songs, and starred in Diamonds Are Forever.
Thanks for making it to the end of another episode, and we will be back next week with more
Talk of the Street.
Talk of the Street.
Bye.
Cheerio.